besties, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're having the most amazing day of your entire stinking life. We are starting a timed 24-hour readathon this weekend. It is currently Thursday and I'm hoping to get some good reading done today, so I was like, why not just start it today? So I hope they're excited. Let's talk a little bit about the TBR. I'm trying to be a good nugget and stick to my May TBR right from the very beginning. I did have thoughts of deterring from the May TBR like first thing this morning because I had a couple Libby holds that weren't on my May TBR. If you watched my monthly reset vlog, I talked about my May TBR. We're focusing on Kindle Unlimited books and we're focusing on finishing series that we're currently in the middle of because I'm in the middle of about 26 series right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're gonna focus on the Shadows and Crowns series. I'm starting off reading A Crown of the Gods by S.M. Gaither. This is the 4th book. I'm gonna be listening to the audiobook on Everend for this, but I'm also going to be reading along on my Kindle because these books are on Kindle Unlimited. Depending on how I'm feeling, if I want to jump right into the 5th and final book in the series, we have that option. A Queen of the Dawn is definitely a hopeful. We'll just like throw that out there. To Bleed a Kingdom by Ella Dawes is definitely on this list because this is our Who Did This To You book club pick for May. And I think it'd be really fun to just like start off the month reading the book club book and putting all of my teehees, giggles, and thoughts into Fable. And I'm kind of torn between To Snap a Silver Stem by Sarah A. Parker. That's the 2nd book in the Crystal Bloom series. I'm leaning more towards that one because depending on how that book goes, we might not continue with the series or we might continue with it because I felt such mixed feelings about To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. I think that To Snap a Silver Stem will be a good determining factor. So those are the weekend plans. I technically started at 9:30 this morning. I listened to about 1 chapter of A Crown of the Gods when I was chopping up some strawberries, which you would have seen. I just paused my timer to chit chat with y'all, give you the updates, give you the TBR. That's what's been happening. I will check in once I get some reading done. Past my halfway mark of reading for the day. I am at 47% in A Crown of the Gods. I'm happy to be back with these characters, but I feel like at the halfway point in this book, literally nothing has happened yet. And so it's tough. There's been some amazing, like, spicy scenes. I can tell the direction that the story is going, but I find I tend to struggle with series that are over 4 books long. Typically a trilogy is like my perfect series. I feel like a lot can be accomplished in 3 books, but I feel like sometimes when you start to get past 4 books, certain books in the series are just too vibe or like to get the plot set up for where it needs to go in like the finale book. And I feel like that's what's happening in this book, and I feel like it's kind of what was happening in the last book, which is sad. But Call of the Void definitely wasn't my favorite of the series. Like I mentioned, Call of the Void was like this journey for knowledge. The first 2 books, there was a lot of action that was happening. There were a lot of characters that were being introduced. And so the 3rd book was like, we need to learn more about what's going on. We need to learn about our enemies. We need to learn about the gods and the magic and all of these things. In this book, we're preparing for the big war that's to come. I'm assuming that the last book is going to be the main conflict that we are currently in the rising action of building up to. But it just makes it kind of boring. Like we're at this castle, the characters are coming together, we're trying to find allies, and it's mainly just vibing. There haven't been any big plot points. So I'm happy that I have the audiobook. I have been switching between reading on my Kindle, listening to the audiobook, sometimes immersive reading. Just gonna continue strong. I don't feel like switching to a different book. I'd rather kind of just push through this one, see how it ends, so that way I don't lose my momentum with it. But fingers crossed that the finale book in the series really gets me back to like a 5-star and ends really strong. Good morning, besties. We are headed to a facial appointment and Cine makeup, and we are rushing to get there on time, but I wanted to do a quick check-in beforehand because, let me pull up my timer. I didn't read for my full 8 hours yesterday. I was short about an hour and 49 minutes. So we currently have, ooh, the glare, 17 hours, 49 minutes left. I fell asleep last night listening to the audiobook for A Crown of the Gods. I am going to listen to that audiobook on the way to my facial appointment because it's about a 40-minute drive there and then 40 minutes back, so that should be some good reading for the day. I'm really close to finishing A Crown of the Gods. Let me see how much longer. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of excited to be done with it. I feel like this book was a bit disappointing. I have 2 hours and 41 minutes left, and then I think the next book that I'm going to read is To Bleed a Kingdom. I have it already downloaded on my Kindle. I don't have the audiobook for that one, but after my facial I'm getting a pedicure, and perfect time to be reading on my kitty, you know what I mean? We are freshly back from the pool. We are prepping for pizza night Fridays where we make homemade pizza, and I am checking in at the 8.5-hour mark into this 24-hour readathon. I have not done as much reading today as I was hoping to. It's fine, we're gonna persevere. We have 15 hours and 45 minutes left. I'm going to try to read well into the night tonight to try to make up some of this time. However, I did finish A Crown of the Gods, and I was very surprised at the ending. I feel like S.M. Gaither does a really good job capturing you to want to read her next book. The ending kind of had me gasping and clutching my pearls, I'm not gonna lie. I was really debating what I wanted to rate it. Like, as I kept reading and getting closer to the end, I was like, oh my gosh, this is getting so good. This is getting so juicy. This is getting so much better. But I still feel like, how long is that book? That book is 642 pages. Oh my goodness. I feel like that book really could have been cut down in length because, like I mentioned, I think my last check-in was pretty much at the halfway mark. Nothing happens in the whole first half of the book. Like, it took us so long to get where we needed to go. I love the friend group. I do also love the romance, but I feel like our love interests in this book are so well established that, like, we got a handful of spicy scenes, and S.M. Gaither really said, I'm gonna give you like whole ass dates with spicy scenes. These spicy chapters were like 30 minutes long, like 35 minutes long. And I'm like, okay, bestie, I get it. Can we like focus on the plot? Because nothing is happening right now. We are just vibing, which is disappointing. However, I do think that the last book of the series will be really juicy. So we will see. But first book of the 24-hour readathon down. And I did start reading To Bleed a Kingdom. I only read the prologue, but the prologue was pretty long. I'm on page 28. Initial thoughts and feelings, this book is much darker than what I thought it was going to be. It does have content warnings in the beginning of it, but the summary said it was like a silly, goofy, humorous time, but it does have a balance of like violent scenes, and it does get pretty dark. I wasn't expecting the prologue to be as dark as it was. I'll give a more coherent synopsis for To Bleed a Kingdom once I've read maybe at least like 20 to 25%, and then I'll give it to you in my own words, because if you read the summary of this book on Goodreads, it's one of those books where you leave the summary feeling like you don't really know more about the book. So I'll give it to you in my own words. Once I read a little bit more, we need to really focus on reading for the rest of the day so that we don't have to read for like 12 hours tomorrow. I'm now 20% into To Bleed a Kingdom. I'm on chapter 5, and I wanted to give a little bit of like a coherent synopsis, but I will say I'm definitely not loving it. So we have our two main characters, Darius and Lena. Darius is the bastard prince. He's the captain of the guard of this very secure city, and he's having an issue lately where they have these beings called soulless. They sounded like zombies at first, but then when it talked about who creates the soulless, they kind of sound like vampires, but vampires that don't have a mind of their own, and they try to eat and drink the blood of like living beings. Anyways, they're having trouble with the soulless. He tried to tell his queen about it. He went to this king's convening, whatever, and he tried to tell all of the royalty of the surrounding cities about this issue, and they were like, sounds like a you problem, we're not dealing with it. And so he's frustrated about it. He goes to the pub to drink with his friends, and in walks Lena. Lena and her friend group, we don't know too much about quite yet, but it sounds like they're not from a surrounding city, at least one that's not like close by. They're definitely from another place that we haven't learned about yet. She's very beautiful. She's very different, and we know that because she has amethyst eyes, and every female main character that I've encountered that has purple eyes is different. Her friends are very mysterious. They've come into Darius's city. It seems like for kind of a nefarious purpose. They said that they're there to trade leather, and everyone laughs at that because the city is known, like world renowned for its like crazy leather products, whatever. So they're like, that's weird, but okay. I don't know much else because they spent like 3 chapters talking about how they're very insta-lovey. Like Lena walked into this pub and Darius turns around and sees her walk in, and like all of the heads turn because she's just so beautiful and so different, and he's like immediately in love with her. And then they just start talking about how thirsty they are for each other. So it's a little odd. I definitely don't like Darius's chapters. This book, it seems like it was written by a man, and it's just reading like kind of gross. So I don't know. We're gonna continue with it for a little while. I've only read for another about hour, so I'm gonna give this book maybe another hour to hour and a half. See how I'm feeling. I might switch to something else. I am posting in the Fable like chapter chats because I'm curious to see like what everyone else is gonna think about this book, but the writing style is not my favorite. Hi besties, it feels like a while since my last check-in. We are almost at the halfway point. 12 hours and 7 minutes left. Last night's reading didn't go as planned, so I think I read a couple more chapters of To Bleed a Kingdom before I just didn't want to do it anymore. I started to get into procrastinating behaviors like doom scrolling on TikTok. I just didn't want to read that book anymore. So I think I'm going to put that down for a little while and switch to a different book. I've actually done that already, and I started to read To Snap a Silver Stem. That's what I have been reading all today so far. Started it in the morning. We went to the pool for the afternoon. It is now about 3 o'clock. Yeah, 3:01. I'm on chapter 15, 25% of the way through. It's going so much better. Like I can really tell by switching to this book how much I really just didn't want to be reading To Bleed a Kingdom. To Snap a Silver Stem, let me talk a little bit about the Crystal Bloom series. This is the second book, so again, I'll keep updates fairly vague because no spoilers, but this is a dark Rapunzel retelling, and honestly, I couldn't tell you much more than that. Even though I've read the entire first book, it's so confusing. Like as the reader, you're really left in the dark about a lot of things, but the characters are intriguing, if not confusing. The romance is extremely confusing. It is very toxic. All of these characters are really, really flawed, but I enjoy Sarah Parker's writing so much. She does have, I wouldn't call it overly descriptive, but she does have a very descriptive writing style. I also enjoy the pacing of her books. You get like spurts of action throughout, even though it is a very character-driven series. In the second book, we're traveling to a different place, which is crazy. And I think we even have like a completely different love interest, but the toxic love interest from the first book is still like lurking around. And in the second book so far, we've gotten a lot of different POVs. I think the first book was mostly Orlaith, who's our main character. She has a very troubled but also mysterious past. When she was really young, her entire family dies a very brutal death. She is saved from that situation, and her caretaker, the one who saves her, puts her in this castle, in this tower. He's kind of the love interest, but it's really confusing. And also he like drinks her blood once a day. That's all I know about the series, even after reading the first book, so that's what I'm going to share with you. Safe to say, very much enjoying this. I'm debating buying the audiobook for it because it's on sale on Audible for like $7.50. And I feel like audiobooks have been helping me just fly through books. I'm also trying to go to the gym to go for my run right now, so I'm like, do I get the audiobook and just like listen to it while I'm running and then listen to it while I'm doing other stuff later tonight? I think so. I think I probably will. It's so annoying when books are Audible exclusives though. Talk soon. Hello besties, we are on the final day of this timed 24-hour readathon. Let me do a time check-in. We have 7 hours and 26 minutes left. And I am almost done with To Snap a Silver Stem. I think I'm like 71% of the way through. And I realized I hadn't given like a lot of updates about that book yet. So now that we've gotten much more into the story, I think it's really interesting how in this book, I mentioned how we're getting a ton of different POVs. But there's a lot of similarities between the POVs. Basically, everyone is so thirsty for someone and like they're not really able to be with that person for one reason or another. So it's really interesting. Like there's a lot of like tension in every single chapter that we're getting. I will say some of the POVs seem a little bit random. Like I think that we could have done with, we have Orlaith's, we have Kane's, we have, I always forget, he's like one of the main love interests and I always forget his name and it starts with an R. Riordan or something like that. His POV. And then Kai. I think those 4 would have been fine, but we get this other POV, Baze. And his seems really, really random to me. Like, I don't understand why we're following him because he's in like a completely different place than all of the other characters. Everyone else is very like centrally located and we know why we're following them because they're all like pretty intertwined. Arguably, Kai is a little bit random, but I love him and we got a lot of him in the first book. So like I'm here for it. But I will say I am vibing. I just don't love how as the reader in these books, we never get to the point where we fully feel like we know what's going on. And that's a little bit frustrating to me. Like, I understand keep your readers in the dark about some things, but don't keep your readers in the dark about like literally everything. And I also think the world is really interesting. There's like magical monsters that are wreaking havoc in different kingdoms in this book, but we never get like a full explanation of the magical creature. There's not like a strong sense of plot throughout, but we just have so many questions about so many little things that's why I'm still intrigued. And I also can't wait until we finally get a spicy moment between the people who want to have a spicy moment. Like they just haven't had their moment in 2 books now, so questionable. We are going to be finishing that book pretty soon, which is very exciting. And then we are going to jump into Queen of the Dawn. I think I've fully decided that that is what I will listen to today. We're gonna do a lot of audiobook listening with like probably a little bit of immersive reading, but I do have to work today. I don't have a lot of meetings, so I'm hoping that I'll just be like tip-typing away, listening to my audiobook closing out this 24-hour readathon. We just finished To Snap a Silver Stem. We have 5 hours and 2 minutes left. We do have the Miami F1 race going on in the background, and my baby Lando Norris is currently in 3rd place. We are praying for him for his first win. I think I have officially decided I'm not going to continue with the Crystal Bloom series. I think that To Snap a Silver Stem for me was another 3-star. The ending did get juicy. I did like the answers that we got towards the end, but in 2 books we've only gotten 1 answer, and it's just like not enough for me. I don't like these writing styles where the world is left out of focus for the reader. A series that had a similar writing style or like suspense tactic was the Broken Bonds series by J. Bree, and I just didn't like it. Like, give me, even if it's minimal world building, give me something. Don't just leave me in the dark and all we're getting are these snippets from the characters who seem to know more about the world and the reader just never knows. You can't like orient yourself basically, and I don't enjoy that suspense tactic enough to continue on. There's only 1 more book that's out right now. I did hear that this series is going to be a 6-book series. Not for me. 2 is enough. So I feel these books, like, I'm happy to be continuing with these series, but I really just like wanted them to be better reads for me. So we're going into our last book. We have 5 hours left. I am hoping and praying, crossing my fingers and toes, that Queen of the Dawn is higher than a 3-star. Queen. I don't know if I'll be able to finish this book in 5 hours because it's 576 pages, but we're gonna try to get as far as we can. Officially finished this 24-hour readathon, and none of these books really hit for me. I'm at about the 50% mark in The Queen of Dawn, and I will total my pages read in just a moment because a lot of these books were actually fairly chunky, like over 500 pages. But final thoughts with where I'm at for Queen of Dawn. This is the finale book, and this is like the battle book because in the past 3 books in the series, like all of the middle books, there were battles at the very end or like towards the end of each book, but we've been building up to this big crescendo of this massive war that's happening, and it feels like everywhere they're going in this book, they're fighting someone or something's going on. Where do I want to start? The things that I'm enjoying about this book, I think exploring the elven worlds in the Shadows and Crowns series has been really interesting. I find Mistwild, which we only get to experience in this last book, is beautiful. It's so atmospheric. Just picture like cascading waterfalls everywhere, and it's misty, and it's like light blues and purples, like picture wisteria vines everywhere. It's just so picturesque and stunning. I'm also really enjoying how this last book, it feels like it's giving a really nice full circle moment of everything that we've experienced in all of the other books. We've kind of gone through all of the traumatic events and all of the crazy things that have happened to Cassia along her journey, and that's being recapped really well in this last one to just make it feel like I said, full circle, which I'm really appreciating. The things that are not really working for me at this point in the series, Cassia and Alander, as much as I absolutely love them, I think they're a wonderful couple. The last book and this book, they feel like an old married couple. It feels like nothing new is happening in their relationship. They haven't been challenged since like the second book, and now their relationship is just sturdy, stable. They're doing absolutely everything all together. All of the friend group is all together. There's no conflicts in like their main group of people, which is fine, but it just makes it a little bit boring. And we're still getting spicy scenes between Cassia and Alander. I've just been skipping those chapters because it lasts for a full chapter, which are like, these are longer chapters. They're like at least 20 minutes. Some are upwards of 30 minutes. I just don't care to keep reliving their spicy moments that we've gotten in every single book. Like, it doesn't feel new. It doesn't feel like it's adding anything to the story. It just feels like, oh, this is a romantasy series, so we're going to have like our main couple doing spicy scenes. What would have been more intriguing or like captured more of my interest, I think, at this point, is if we got some romances from her friend group, because I love her friend group. Like, I literally love them so much. They're so funny. I love their conversations with each other. I love how they support each other. Great, great friend group, but like nothing happens with them. They are very much side characters throughout every single book. None of them ever really gets their moment. They're constantly just there to support Cassia. And I just wish, I think there was more potential with the friend group like we experienced in the ACOTAR series. Like, there were times when we were just exploring different relationships instead of just the main love interests and like our true main character, if that makes sense. And it just feels weird because I guess it just feels like more of the same. Like, I wanted something that was much more epic to hit me from the beginning of this book, and 50% of the way through, a little bit more than halfway through, it just feels like more of the same. Okay, final totals for this 24-hour readathon. We finished 2 books. We got halfway through Queen of the Dawn. We're on page 307. And we also got 122 pages into To Bleed a Kingdom. So total pages read in 24 hours. It has been a while since I've done this good of reading in a 24-hour-a-thon. 1,609 pages. If you've made it this far, leave a little star emoji, because fingers crossed next vlog we're gonna have some higher star reads. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the comments, and I will see you in my next one.